Pass me the torch, still blazing. Try to break my will so I won't change. I'm changing too much, but I can't keep still. Fight for the ones who saved me. I'm bleeding red like the ones we're saving. I'm not breaking. Catching up to the power I'm chasing.
Burn the earth tree to the ground. May chaos take the world. May chaos take the world.
I'm a virus, tell me if you notice. Cause I might get blurry when the night gets long. 80 hours up out of focus. Top of this thorn in my side, I'm so gone. See me fly but never like to see me jet lagged. Hear the whisper on the wind, we're all alone. Bad fire on my back like a jetpack. Cause I don't wanna see the ash before it snows. Let me unravel. My arms are shattered, but I can't lose this battle. It's all I am. Pass me the torch, still blazing. Try to break my will so I won't change. I'm changing too much, but I can't keep still. Fight for the ones who save me. I'm bleeding red like the ones we're saving. I'm not breaking. Catching up to the power I'm chasing. Fight the pain in the back of my eyes. They're fixed on the far off horizon. And if I'm gonna go up in flames, then at least
Hey, there we go. Upgrading all these productions out here. Hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another rendition of Grapple Gurus, your BC WrestlePod PPV and PLE review show. And I am joined by somebody who I have been excited to get to work with again. But before I introduce him and let him explain who he is and what he does, I am one of your hosts, Mikey, this morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you decide to watch this, whether it is live or, the replay later. I'm super excited. I have friend to the channel, my friend Macho here. So Macho, why don't you introduce yourself to the peoples out here?
How's it going, everybody? I'm Macho Rodriguez from the Must Love Wrestling Podcast. You can also find me at macho.rodriguez on TikTok, and I am a friend of Mikey, and he's a friend of mine. We met through TikTok and have been talking professional wrestling for over a year now. And he asked for some help on this show. I watched this show in its entirety, and I was honored to join and help him out.
I appreciate it, and I'm super excited to get to work with you again. But if it wasn't evident from the graphic that I have up here, today me and Macho will be reviewing NXT's No Mercy PLE, which was last night. Again, this has been a weekend of wrestling between TNA having Emergence on Friday, Bash in Berlin for the main roster on Saturday morning, and then NXT doing their pay-per-view in the evening yesterday. It has been a wild packed weekend for wrestling, but I am super excited to talk about a pretty fun and solid show with Macho. But before we get too deep into our review, just a couple of housekeeping and rules to go about here, as we normally do here on BC WrestlePod. You can follow us all over the socials at BC WrestlePod. We're pretty much anywhere and everywhere. The list of social medias is long, so I won't go into too much detail about that. And then you can also check us out on Next Level, where all of our socials and extra content is located. So shout out to Next Level for partnering with us. Love the boys over there at Next Level. It's fantastic. And then, of course, you can subscribe and follow us here on the YouTubes or the Twitch, whatever you prefer. And yeah. So me and Macho are going to be talking about NXT No Mercy. For the most part, we chatted throughout the show last night, and we're pretty much in agreement with a lot of stuff. But it is to be said that sometimes we may or say things that aren't necessarily in agreement, and you watching at home might not agree with it. So with that being said, just as a reminder to everybody, I'm not going to go into full detail with this, but the Reader Digest version of this is like what you like. Don't be a turd. Don't be a dick. Like, don't be rude in the comments because you will be blocked. I'm just putting it out there. But we can have a conversation, and this is going to be a fun one for sure. Alrighty, so let's get this out of the way. No Mercy this year takes place in Denver, Colorado. Beautiful city. It's all on my list of places to visit. And No Mercy kicks off with, once again, another fun tag team match. We have our champs of Chase U being represented by Andre Chase and Ridge Holland taking on the former champs in Axiom and Nathan Frazier. Once again, these two did battle at Heatwave. That was a fantastic match. We get a rematch here. The story leading into this match and the feud itself is that Axiom and Nathan Frazier lost their titles to Chase U during Great American Bash and wanted a rematch. So a match was set into place where if Axiom and Nathan could beat Duke Hudson and Riley Osborne of Chase U, they would get the opportunity to face for the titles again. Nathan and Axiom were successful in that and earned their title shot against Chase U for here at No Mercy. Mm-hmm. So, Macho, I'm going to let you go first. This is what opened up. How did we feel about this match?
Well, this felt like one of those old school infomercials on like extreme moments. This felt like a car crash. This was everything you want in an opening match. It started so hot. It was like a firecracker just went off and it was like, let's get going. There was no slow pacing in this match. It was just, they utilized Axiom and Nathan nonstop. Like those guys were moving. It felt almost like an ECW style wrestling match with like Jerry Lynn and like a super crazy type of thing. They were nonstop. They just kept going. And honestly, I was shocked on how good Ridge Holland looked in this match. Like I did not expect it. One of the scary things for me is whenever a wrestler injures another wrestler, that they consistently use that move. Like they continue to use it. And his overhead belly to belly on Axiom and Nathan, it scared me a little bit, but I was happy with the result. I was like, okay, these guys all look good together. I'm not the biggest fan of Chase, but I enjoyed what he provided to this match as well yesterday. I feel bad for that guy because I've wrestled before, man. Those, like, your tights, they stink. You got to wash all that stuff. And this man is like, he is wearing like a fraternity outfit. And I cannot imagine that his laundry bill is cheap.
I'm glad you pointed it out because that's something I always say too. I'm like, wrestling pants, wrestling shorts, like totally understand that. I get, but this man is wrestling in full regalia, like you said, that of a college fraternity or just collegiate in general. So I can't even imagine afterwards having to wash those things for sure. Again, this is the second pay-per-view in a row for NXT that these two face each other. This match was definitely a lot of fun. Heatwave was also really fun. I will give the edge a little bit over to Heatwave because it was more frantic, but I do think that this was fantastic. And I also love the underlying storytelling that we keep telling, that Nathan and Axiom are still on good terms despite some miscommunication and getting smacked by each other's moves, which is really fun to watch. But I was kind of surprised because I thought that Chase U would at least hold on to these until like maybe another pay-per-view cycle. But no, Axiom and Nathan Frazier were able to regain the NXT Tag Team Championships in a fantastic match. But no, we are not done because there was some stuff that happened afterwards. I've been calling it since he joined Chase U, but Rich Holland finally snapped and turned on Chase U. He threw Duke and Riley out. He faced Andre Chase. We also have this lovely picture right here. Shout out to Riley Osborne for selling that. I'm just letting these images speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Ridge picks up Andre, throws him outside of the ring, sets him up on the table. Poor little Thea Hale doesn't know what to do with herself. Ridge is staring down at this. And then, of course, Ridge puts Andre Chase through, on top of the table, where we have a whole stretcher sequence come out. Why, Ridge? Why? But low-key, I'm kind of excited for a heel Ridge Holland against Chase U. This should be fun for sure.
Yeah, I was impressed, and I'm definitely interested. I was gonna say before this happened, I remember my first thought after the match was, okay, they lost the tag titles, and now we can move on from Chase University. I don't think that their group, that we haven't tackled everything that they could possibly give us, because we kind of had like the JC betrayal, right? And it kind of felt like, what really can they do? But I think that this isn't about Chase University. This is about Ridge. And I think it's going to be about Ridge. And I think they're trying to make him as a monster heel for NXT. And Chase is really over with the audience. So what better way than to have him do that? And then having Thea cry like that. I mean, that's immediate heat. And not to mention, not to be too like crass or anything, but to talk about the fact that Ridge just has that natural heat because of the Big E injury, so like there's already a clump of fans that just never will forgive him. And whether that's cool or not, everybody has their prerogative. But now with all of those people that dislike him, now you have this new heat with people that are like, oh yeah, see, we knew that this guy was always like trash, and I think this is going to really work. I would not be surprised if he's not allowed to talk on next Tuesday.
I mean, he kind of started doing that because fast forwarding to later in the evening when we had our correspondent Sarah try to interview Ridge, he just looked at her, said nothing, and just continued walking. So I think this turn for Ridge is definitely welcome. I'm super excited. This also gives Chase U still something to do without being in the tag team title scene, without a championship. Funny enough, I'm interested to see how Chase, Riley, and Duke responds to this, but more importantly, I am excited to see how Thea deals with this and her response to all of this, because we've been building Thea and Ridge as this very close, like big brother, little sister dynamic over the last couple months since Ridge has joined Chase U. And so I'm super excited to see how Thea responds to this new development in Ridge's character and just, taking out her quote unquote family, so to speak.
Agreed.
So good job. I thought, again, this was a definite fun opening match. It definitely continues to tell stories, set some stuff up between now and Halloween Havoc, which has me excited. And good job all around to everyone involved. We then get our next match of the evening, and when I tell you, Macho, as a TNA unapologetic stan, to see a TNA wrestler wrestle Wesley, who also has ties to TNA, but now in NXT, on paper, I knew this match was going to be fun, and by the end of this, my God, did both of these boys deliver so much to me. We had a straight-up singles match, no stipulation, no craziness. It was just straight-up wrestling. We had Wesley taking on his former Rascal stablemate, Zachary Wentz. Before we talk about the match itself, for me, again, as someone who loves TNA, it was really nice to hear Zach being introduced as the X Division champion, which, again, not even a couple years ago, mentioning other championships from other companies would not have been a thing, which is really, really fun. And again, this ties in perfectly to what happened at Emergence. Zachary Wentz won the Ultimate X match, is your new X Division champion, being able to walk on NXT television with the TNA champion made by TNA Heart grows so much. And then the match started, and my God, these boys did everything I wanted and then some. But the finishing sequence was fantastic. I should probably get into the story real quick before we get more and I start gushing more. But the story is that, again, everything transpires at Great American Bash this year. We had the reunited MSK challenge for the tag team championships. They were unsuccessful in their endeavor. And then Wesley turns on Zach and Trey, comes out the following week, talks about how he carried these two throughout their TNA career. Zach is having none of it. And then on the Go Home show, they have a back-to-back. And honestly, that promo battle between the two of them, I really, really enjoyed, with, Zach dipping into the realism and telling Wes, when you had your surgery, who was there at you at one? Who were you texting at 1 a.m? Who got you food when you were in the hospital recovering? I was there for you, but now it's no longer about brothership. I just want revenge. And then the brawl happened, which sets up this match. So, Macho, this is a quote-unquote grudge match, if you will. Hurt feelings and betrayal is all around this. How did Wes and Wentz, deliver in this match, and how'd you feel about it?
I know it's really early in our show, but I text you this earlier today. I believe this was the match of the night, if not the match of the weekend.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree with you.
I feel like, and I've said this in the past, I've had private conversations with people about wrestling, and I've talked about this. There's been this discourse that Dragon Lee is never going to be the next Rey Mysterio, and that's the problem WWE faces because they are dealing with trying to create the next Rey Mysterio, right? And I've always stated they have a guy in hand that can be that because he's an updated version. His name is Wes Lee. He is that good. He is that spectacular. I have always felt this way about Wes Lee. I feel like he should be vying for the NXT World Championship. He should be feuding with Obafemi if you need to put him back in the NXT North American Championship. I feel like he's the perfect counter for anybody. But then having Wentz come in and just give you that lineage of the X Division Championship, because we're talking about Michael Shane, we're talking about AJ Styles, we're talking about Loki, we're talking about Christopher Daniels, all of these amazing former NWA TNA X Division champions, and here he comes bringing it and just reminding everybody, do you see this talent that I've just given you? Do you see everything that I was able to do with my boy Wes? This is what you're going to get when you tune into our show. And to watch him go over, that to me speaks volumes to the way that WWE feels about their relationship with NWA, with TNA. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I think this is great because this is something that's always missing. You can't just bring people in to partner with you and then bring them onto your show and always have them lose. And the story was perfect. The ending, everything. My God, the way Wes sold that cutter at the end should be studied. It should be studied. There are certain, I will say that for growing professional wrestling fans, lately there has been a masterclass of clips that should be downloaded from the internet and added to a file. And as you're training, wherever you choose to train, you should go back and watch these moments. This was one of them. The Britt Baker promo on Mercedes a couple Wednesdays ago. That was a promo where I was like, this is how you sell a program with limited time. These guys have had limited time. There hasn't been a lot since this betrayal. And I was bought in completely because of the talent, because of the story that they provided us. It was spectacular. Everything about it was beautiful.
Yeah, you mentioned it before. Wentz's UFO cutter was a sight to behold, and I audibly screamed and gasped when I was watching this last night. But you said it even more too, like to see. I predicted on my predictions, I said Wes was going over. I was like, okay, it makes sense. But the fact that Wentz went over here, I wasn't even mad that Wes lost. I was happy to see Wentz, go over, win this match. Obviously, we're not done quite yet. We probably got one more between these two, which I am all here for. But
Yeah.
it also seems that, the Rascals are going to be sticking around a little bit because later in the show, again, Sarah is interviewing Wentz about the match. And, the Rascals are calling their shot against Axiom and Nathan Frazier for the tag team titles, which sets up this upcoming Tuesday. We have a number 1 contenders match with the Rascals involved. Winner will go on to face Axiom and Nathan Frazier for the tag team titles. Don't know if it's going to be for TV. Don't know if it's going to be for Halloween Havoc. But regardless, the TNA and NXT relationship is starting to pick up. And I am excited that TNA gets to invade NXT. And I look forward to seeing what NXT is also going to do in return, because they've been sending a lot of folks. I mean, we had Riley Osborne represent NXT at the TNA Emergence pay-per-view this past Friday in that Ultimate X match. But my gosh, this was my match of the night, my match of the whole entire weekend, and my match of the week for sure.
Yeah.
And I was super happy with everything.
And we need to talk about how important that the fact that this became match of the night, because after Saturday, I honestly felt, I was like, that was Punk's best match in probably 10 years. Like, I loved his match with Joe, but that was his best. That match was phenomenal. And then the masterclass, the just beautiful story, the heartbreak, all of it that Randy and Gunther gave us. I did not think those matches could be topped. I wasn't able. We did our Muscle of Wrestling show, and I was not able to give my match of the night. I couldn't decide which of those two I liked better. I can honestly tell you this morning, this match right here was better than both of those matches. Just everything about the grudge of it, everything was beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. And what I love to see too, and this is my last thought before we move on, the ceiling for Wes and Wentz in their respective companies does not exist. They will continue to crash through those ceilings time and time again. Again, we saw in the hype package, Wesley has had probably my favorite NXT North American title reign, the longest NXT North American title reign. And Wes is a fantastic talent. He's my boy. I don't care if he's a heel. I'm going to be rooting for him all the way. And then, of course, the Rascals always have my heart. Wentz and Trey Miguel and TNA. Like, it's a good time to be a wrestling fan and to enjoy what we're watching, because I feel like within the last couple months, people tend to forget that. But that's for a whole other podcast. But again, this definitely was my match of the night, match of the weekend, and match of the week for sure. So we get a little bit of a commercial because NXT reminds us that their next PLE will be Halloween Havoc, coming to us live on Sunday, October 27th from Hershey, Pennsylvania. So again, I love Halloween Havoc. It has been like one of my favorite gimmick shows that NXT has done within the last couple of years. I love the spin the wheel, make the deal matches, and it tends to have some of our favorite matches, like we just talked about Wes winning the North American Championship in that ladder match. We had, I believe, Halloween Havoc last year is when we had Lyra beat Becky for the NXT Women's Championship. And honestly, we also had Kiana James and Roxanne Perez in a Devil's Playground match, which had no right to be as entertaining as it was, but it was. And then we also had, just this past Halloween Havoc, Blair Davenport versus Gigi Dolan in a Lights Out match, where we had the most epic chair shot in history when Blair just straight up chucked the chair at Gigi and she sold it perfectly. Halloween Havoc tends to be my favorite, and I cannot wait for October to be reviewing that as well. But we go on for this little commercial into our next match. So,
wait, can I say something?
Go for it.
This is a little fun fact. Halloween Havoc was actually designed to be WCW's WrestleMania.
You know what? That kind of makes sense in the grand scheme of things when you look at it.
Everybody gravitated towards Starrcade because of the significance of the matches at Starrcade, but Eric Bischoff has actually said on his 83 Weeks podcast with Conrad Thompson that Halloween Havoc was actually supposed to be their WrestleMania. That was their biggest show of the year. And I love that we get Halloween Havoc. And I will tell you, Mikey, I grew up a WCW fan. That is my company. When I talk about professional, my all-time favorite wrestler is Sting, and I am very happy to say that I am taking my son to this show. We are going to Halloween Havoc. He is going to watch this with me. We're going all dressed up. We're going all out. It's going to be great.
Oh, absolutely. And not And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, Macho, because for anyone who is like, should I go watch an NXT pay-per-view when it's on the road? The answer to that is yes. And I can speak from experience because when Mania was in Los Angeles 2 years ago at SoFi, me and one of our other co-hosts here, Minnie, and a personal friend of mine, Uriel, the three of us did the full Saturday. We went to Stand and Deliver in the morning, and then we went to night one of WrestleMania at night and Stand and Deliver, no pun intended, delivered, because it still has one of my favorite matches the last couple of years, that fatal 5-way for the North American Championship between Wes, Ilya, JD, Dragon Lee, Axiom. That match was fantastic. We had the women's match. We had the ladder match for the NXT Women's Championship. And we had a fun triple threat between Gallus and the Creeds and all that. Just short version of it. If NXT rolls through your town, please go watch it because it is good wrestling and fun to be had for all.
Yes.
So now I better see pictures, Macho, when you go, because that
absolutely
it's going to be fantastic. So we move on from our little commercial for Halloween Havoc into our next championship match. This is for the NXT Women's North American Championship. We have our defending champ, Kalani Jordan, taking on her challenger, this time in a darker version of Wendy Chu. So I want to start off with some good first before I talk about this.
Okay.
I am so happy to see Kalani in this position from being on the pre-show last year at No Mercy going up against Blair to being the inaugural NXT Women's North American Champion and being able to defend the championship on the actual card makes me so happy. I think she is a bright future in NXT. I love Wendy Chu too. We know that she has been wrestling for quite some time, and now that she's back from injury, I'm happy that she's here and we're getting to explore this darker character of these nightmares, things like that. I say all this to say I don't think the match was terrible, and some people are being a little harsh on it more than it needs to be. I do agree this was definitely the slower match of the evening, and it was my least favorite, though I still enjoyed it quite a bit from the perspective that both women were trying new stuff, but it's just like their styles didn't mesh well for me, and this is definitely a slower pace, and it didn't help that the crowd was kind of quiet during this match.
Yeah, I'm going to say that this was my least favorite match of the whole weekend.
Yeah.
I have a genuine question as a wrestling fan, as a fan of the all of pro wrestling. Do you think we've reached a point in pro wrestling where we're kind of like oversaturated with spooky?
So, short answer to that is I think so, and I'll take it a step further. I think we have reached a saturation of, I don't want to say mediocre because the character choices matter, but like everybody who is doing a spooky character, it's just like okay at best. Like what, and you know, when I think of spooky characters, to me, you have different variants. And Wendy is giving more of like the surrealist kind of spookiness, which, you know, in this day and age, everyone does because it's, in my opinion, it's in 2024, it's really hard to get over. I personally love supernatural spooky characters. I think those are fantastic. But I know in 2024, and it's not just a wrestling thing, I think it's just a trope in general with horror movies. More horror movies are more surreal than supernatural. And so Wendy's is more surreal to me. And I agree with you. I feel like we've reached an oversaturation and everyone's just doing okay with it. We really haven't had a super standout when it comes to supernatural gimmicks because they don't go far enough with it, if that makes sense. Like, find me in the boiler room, like have this be scary, like film some vignettes. Let's just not wait until Halloween to do all the cool spooky stuff. And then we just get what we see normally throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. I just think like I went into this very excited. I thought the same thing. Kalani lost in 6 minutes. She was fed to Blair Davenport last year. It was just a go out there, make Blair look good because she's going to the main roster soon. And to see her as a prominent singles champion, to have her in the middle of the card, and maybe it's also the fact that this happened directly after Wes and Wentz. maybe that's also what kind of drew me back, but that's why I rewatched the show this morning. And I just have to tell you, like, this match just wasn't it for me. And I appreciate what Kalani's doing, and I love watching her. I do agree with what you said there. I don't think their styles mesh at all. I think there are just some times where wrestlers don't, because, like, who was the TNA wrestler that Kalani worked last week?
So she worked against Rosemary, which now you want to talk about spooky characters. Rosemary to me works because, again, in TNA, Rosemary has the whole entire like dark nether realm saga that's been going on, and she will go into a casket to visit it. And as hokey and campy as it is, at least they go full throttle. And now she's kind of transformed it to still having that scary essence, but now it's more of like a Donnie Darko kind of situation where she carries the duffel and everything. But I thought Kalani versus Rosemary on the actual show did better than this one. And if I'm being honest, I like Wendy, but I feel like Kalani versus Rosemary would have actually been a really fun match to have here too, which sucks because I like Wendy and I know what she can do because she's great in the ring. It's just that these particular styles didn't clash. And then, of course, for me personally, I try not to compare, but it doesn't help that at the last PLE at Heatwave, Kalani went at it with Soul and Ruka, and that match was fantastic, and that was phenomenal. Yeah. I don't care if it was choreographed. That was like, it ended up being like in the A zone for me on the report card when I gave it. And so it's kind of sucked. Again, nothing was inherently bad. I didn't think this was, as bad as most people are making out to be, but it definitely was on the weaker end with a pretty stacked card by the end of it when we review beginning to end.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel the same way. I just didn't get what I needed out of this. It wasn't the best match that I guess we can come up with. I don't know. Maybe this story needs to be drawn out so that way Wendy can get her shine. But if the objective was to make Kalani look really good and to make Wendy look formidable, I just don't think this did that.
Yeah. And honestly, like the match itself was fine. Mm-hmm. And it kind of sucks because what we got at the end teasing what's next for Wendy has me more excited, which kind of sucks because as soon as this match was over, Wendy is sitting in the middle of the ring just contemplating. And then we get from the back, we have Tatum Paxley coming in to get her revenge because Wendy took out Tatum a couple of weeks ago. And now Tatum is back with this. She puts Wendy in her finisher. And then, again, if you want to be creepy about it, this is the way to go about it. Because then Tatum places a Wendy Chu Barbie doll onto her pillow with, Tatum standing tall over Wendy. And it seems we're getting Tatum versus Wendy next. And I'm kind of here for it. I love Tatum's craziness.
Yeah, I think Tatum, that's my biggest issue. And I hate to say stuff like this. Like, I feel like we have the spooky realm. We have these characters that are really, really good at it. Like Abaddon and like, Tatum and Rosemary. And then I feel like that's the problem we face. Like, I get it that Wendy's not necessarily supposed to be their level, but she's also playing off the nightmare stuff. And nightmares can be scary. There was nothing nightmarish about that. Like, I would say since they have such a big, like, video collection, I would have her go back and watch some, like you mentioned, the Boiler Room Mankind. I think she can become that. And that's what was missing yesterday. It was just like, I'm dressed for spooky, but I'm just going to wrestle normal. And it didn't come off good. It was kind of like what we saw, what we see all the time, like with Karrion Kross. Like, it just doesn't come off. Like, it doesn't work for you. This spooky thing doesn't work for you. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what I saw. But yeah, having her work with Tatum, to me, I feel like this is just another way to get Tatum pushed up the ladder because I could tell she's a favorite in that company.
Yeah, Tatum. NXT loves Tatum, and I mean, I grew to love her when she was with Lyra before Lyra went to main roster, so that was a lot of fun. So we'll see what happens next in this Tatum and Wendy saga. So again, not my favorite match. I didn't think anything was inherently horrible, but again, it definitely was the weaker one of the pay-per-view. So now we move on to our fourth match of the evening. Jesus Louise. There isn't, I'm gonna just put this out there. There at this point, we're gonna need a miracle because there is nothing that can stop Obafemi right now. But I digress. We have the NXT North American Championship match next. We have our champion Obafemi defending his title against the Don of NXT, Tony D'Angelo. The story of how we got here again was a quick build. Tony recently lost the NXT Heritage Cup back to Charlie Dempsey. And then, it was just decided, hey, I want to go after Obafemi because I can. And you know what? Sometimes that's all we need in wrestling feud, especially when it comes to NXT. I did like on the Go Home show, we had the Don versus, this wild man that is Obafemi. And only one of them is walking out as the true ruler of NXT. The Don versus the ruler is how we got this. Again, yes. I thought this match was a lot of fun, and I will say this: this was fantastic. Tony D'Angelo looks better and better every time he's in the ring. He has improved so much since his debut in NXT, and the way that he was able to survive being power bumped into the apron and kicking out of that was fantastic. And also, shout out to Oba for selling Tony, be like, oh, Tony might actually have a chance. It's not as one-sided as I thought it was going to be. Also, by the way, I love Tony's ring gear for this pay-per-view at the PLE. I thought it looked fantastic. But Macho, we had the Don versus the Ruler. How did we feel about this North American Championship match?
I felt about this match that I felt almost vindicated, because I just as my own personal vindication, because I feel like Obafemi is a superstar just waiting. Like, I don't think when he goes to the main roster, we're going to get Braun Breaker level. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a big Steiner Brothers fan, love Braun Breaker. I love the slow roll. I don't think that works with Obifa. When I see Obi better come in and be world champion right away. To me, he is that good. To know where he started, to know where he's at now, for him to be showcasing against a pros pro like Tony D. A lot of people don't he's just a pros pro. He's a really good in-ring performer. He's a good hat. And listen, to me, this match, I felt like did everything it was supposed to do. This wasn't about Tony. That's why I think the build was so slow. That was so minimal. I think this was all about Obi. I think this was like, let's continue to build this man. And I just got to say, I am excited for the future. I cannot wait who he faces next. I want more. Every time he's out there, I want to hear everything he says. I want to watch his mannerisms. I want to see him perform in the ring. I even feel like his entrance is so theatrical. It's so wonderful. Like, this man is just a really, really good professional wrestler. He's a throwback. And I love this. I thought this was great. I thought the spots were good. But for me, what stood out the most was Obi. He stood out just the most.
Oh, absolutely. And again, since being a part of NXT, Oba has dominated. And I love seeing that because it's been a while since we've had a dominant, champion, not even champion, a dominant wrestler who's just out here having fun matches, just being super powerful, and the charisma and the aura, as the kids say, he just has it. And I love it for him. And, no surprise that he was able to retain his championship here, but also a very fantastic performance from Tony D as well. Tony continues to impress me every time. And, eventually, if it's in the cards, I am excited if Tony gets an NXT championship run, for the main title. I would be super happy about that. But overall, I thought this was a really, really fun match. And this was super great.
Yes.
It was fantastic. So now we get our semi-main event, and we got a lot to talk about this one, both in-ring wise and what happened afterwards. But in your semi-main event, we had the NXT Women's Championship on the line. Roxanne Perez defending her title against Jada Parker. The story leading into this match is that after beating Thea Hale, at Great American Bash, Roxanne basically told in the women's division and even Ava is like, who else you got for me? Like, I've pretty much done a lot of things and I am the champion. And so Ava decided to do a gauntlet match to determine the next number one contender between a couple of the girls. Jada Parker ended up being the winner of this gauntlet match. And then what put this over the edge for me was on the go home show when Jada was having a sit down with Sarah. Roxanne interrupts. Yes. And this is where I feel, so I have never been shy to say, I think Roxanne is a great wrestler. She is fantastic. She is called the prodigy for a reason. However, I have always had an issue with how she presented her promos with this character. But when I tell you that let me specify. I wasn't upset with what she was saying. I just didn't like her delivery of it. But it took her a bit to get there. But when I tell you on the go home show, the way she delivered the promo and how she, worded it in a way where it's just like everyone has the same sad story. They want to be NXT Women's Champion. They have this dream of me wanting them. And she's like, but it's not going to happen because I crushed every single one of their dreams and you're going to be no different. Mm-hmm. And then we got the pimp slap of the century because Jada literally told Roxanne, I'm going to slap the taste out of your mouth. Roxanne got cocky telling Jada, I like to see you try. And Jada Parker gets up and just bam across the face of Roxanne. And then, of course, this plays into what we're going to talk about after talking about the match. But Jada looks off camera and says, it's like, what you doing here? Oh, I heard about you and you can come get some too. And then Roxanne's like on the floor, like, what? Looks off camera and she's like, oh shit. She gets the, oh my goodness face. So that's what led into this match. Now, Zach and Wes was my match of the night, but damn, was this a close one too. I thought this was a fantastic match, not only adding to Roxanne's list of matches she had, but honestly, this was definitely a good showing for Miss Jada Parker as well. I've been a big fan of Jada. Still hate her finisher, but we'll talk about that during the match. Macho, semi-main event, Roxanne and Jada, they about to bring it. How did we feel about our NXT Women's Championship match?
I think the name The Prodigy doesn't do Roxanne Perez justice. I think people look at her kind of like the OG John Cena, like the prototype, and they don't understand that she's so much further along than he was at that point. To me, she is AJ Lee reincarnated with a better skill set. She may not be able to cut the promo that AJ could cut because that was otherworldly. But when I watched her in the ring the first time, I thought, oh yeah, she's got something. Now, I think what's missing from her is that feud because right now she's just working everybody available. Like, throw me your next person. She needs that like trilogy, that like 6-month feud with someone. I think the intention is to have that be Cora Jade because that's her, like that's her girl and stuff. But Cora has just sustained back-to-back terrible injuries and hasn't been given the opportunity. I'm sorry. What's her name here? I just lost. I blanked for a second. Jada. Yes. Jada. I feel like Jada is, to me, she is the realest NXT woman on the roster. And what I mean by that is when she goes out there, whether she talks, when she works, the way she presents herself, I believe that is absolutely her. Now, it could not be. It could be this is just me getting worked. But when I watch her, when I hear her, I honestly, I believe I'm like, this is who she is. This is exactly who she is, and I buy it. And Stone Cold Steve Austin once said this a long time ago. The reason Stone Cold worked is because he was Steve Williams with the radio, with the volume turned up. And that's what I get here. That's exactly what I get out of her. And it's really good to see. I agree with you on the finish, although I do believe that her finisher was intentional for the ending of this match today. But between these two, I'm excited. I'm not a big fan, unless you're a name like a Roman, of just having people constantly come out and just surprise you and challenge you for the championship, because I feel like it hurts the person you just worked. And the ending of this match, we're not talking about the match. We're talking about what we're about to talk about in the next 10 seconds. But this match was spectacular.
It definitely was, and it definitely saw Roxanne having to work a little harder because Jada was also not going to be giving up. My last thing before we get into what happens after the match, you know, I have become a big fan of Jada. Like, I'm excited to follow her NXT journey. And again, I try not to compare wrestlers because I don't think it's fair. But the feeling that I'm having with Jada is exactly the same feeling I had when we first got Bianca in Belair in NXT. Like, homegirl is a star. She has the charisma. She has, everything going for her. And I would love to see Jada, with more time in NXT. I'm excited to see where it goes for her because I think she has everything. And I agree with you. Jada is the realest woman in the NXT women's locker room right now, because I believe everything she says it does. And I know if she says she's going to beat me up, I best believe she about to throw hands with everybody.
Well, the reason that I also feel this way is because I follow a lot of these superstars, men and women, on social media, right? Like on their Instagram pages and stuff. And here's something, like, I don't want to ruin a character for someone, but let's look at Sol Roca. She is Bethany Hamilton, right? Like before the shark attack. She's Bethany Hamilton. She's a surfer. She's like, this is my stuff. But on social media, she's just a workout warrior. Like, that's what it is. It's just like, I'm going to go to the gym. And it kind of feels like, that's not really your character. So the person you're portraying on screen is just a character. It's just that. There's a clear separation, right? And the reason I bring that up is because in 2024, if you're not living your character, you're never going to get over to the point that you should get over. Roxanne Perez's character and what she portrays on social media is the NXT champion. So when we get a person that your social media presence is like, yeah, I'm better than you. Yeah, like, this is who I am. Like, I'm going to slap the taste out your mouth. Like, I get that from her social media presence. I get that from her interviews in real life. And it's just like, all right, I believe that you say something sideways to this woman, she's going to slap you in front of everybody. She's going to let you know right here and then, like, I am not one to be trifled with. And I feel like that's just going to be so good for her. It's going to benefit her in the future. She continues to be that way. It's going to be awesome. And I look forward to it. I think she's going to be, that's really high praise to consider her like in the area of Bianca, because Bianca's generational.
Exactly. And like I said, this is just an internal feeling I have because Bianca gave a similar energy when she first came to NXT.
Yes.
And she is one of my, I also have criticisms, but it's more to booking, but that's for a whole different discussion. But Bianca truly is the first wrestler since my time of watching pro wrestling that I've seen her from beginning of journey to where she is now. And I am fully on the bandwagon, regardless of what happens next. Absolutely. And I'm putting Jada in that same category. I am going to be following her all the way through her career, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yep.
So after the match, Roxanne is holding that thing tightly. She is celebrating with her title, and then the lights go out with a singular spotlight on Roxanne. We get some music playing. We had the budget to put in a bunch of fog machines to give off this mystic aura. And then I'm just going to let this image sink in because it's finally here. It's finally here. We got her, showing up in the audience at Stand and Deliver back in April. She helped out with Marigold, but now we officially have the NXT debut of one of my favorite international wrestlers, period, in any division, men and women. We have Miss Julia coming down to the ring. Roxanne is there. I forgot to put the screenshot in, but Roxanne just looks at this. She's like, oh shit, I effed up. It's about to get real.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I got a different sentiment from this debut. You can see it here in Julia's face, and I saw it when she first came out. It reminded me of Edge's return. And what I mean by that is the emotion that Edge showed when he came back and he realized, I get to do this again. I get to go out here and I get to work these guys. I get to be in the ring right now with AJ Styles. And I feel like Julia, when I watched her like hyperventilating when she was coming out, like to her, this was like a dream. Like people are still questioning why Stephanie chose this company when she just put on a showcase before she chose this company. And I think moments like what we just watched with Julia, that's why. Because look at the emotion. She knows. She's like, I have arrived. I've wanted to be here. Like some of her best friends are there with Kyrie and Io Sky. Like Io immediately jumped on the interwebs and posted a photo of the tour. And she's like, she's here. Zelina Vega. Like people are excited for this woman to be in this company. She's been widely considered the best female wrestler on the planet who just wasn't with the right company. And now we get to see it. And I think Julia just realized Roxanne Perez is step one. And in a couple of years, my resume is going to read Bianca Belair, Tiffany Stratton, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, like Stephanie Varcourt in this setting. Like, I think in her mind, she just realized, like, oh my God, I get to be here. And these fans immediately loved her. The outpour of affection, the social media presence, all of it. I mean, a lot of wrestlers don't come in this popular. She's coming in really hot into a hot angle. And I really hope that this thing with Roxanne, that it goes further, because Roxanne is doing her damnedest to sell this. And it is beautiful. Everything she's done, this like mentioned her 2 different times, 2 different promos. And now she's here. Now you got to fess up to it. You asked her to come get you. That's what she did.
And now she's here. Yep. So now it's time to put up or shut up, which I'm super excited for. Also, I have to give credit to Vic, one of our commentators for NXT. He before the lights get cut and Julia comes out, Vic mentions that Roxanne is behind Asuka in terms of having the most successful defenses in an NXT pay-per-view PLE situation, which is a really cool honor to be a part of, because as we know, Asuka is the blueprint when it comes to undefeated women's reigns, and not just in NXT, but in any women's division across the board. And for Roxanne to be in that position too is fantastic. But again, you're absolutely right. I'm excited because I know what Julia can do, and I'm excited to see everything in NXT. But more importantly too, and this is just a small little tangent, I love, sometimes I may not like how these wrestlers finish off with the promotions they're currently with. Like, I'll be honest, I love Stephanie Vaquer. I really do. I do feel that it definitely didn't help the way that she left CMLL, because she was supposed to finish up with them before, dropping the titles and going. But I've gotten over it because I'm happy, because Stephanie on Instagram said, and, she even said after she did the house shows in Monterrey, Mexico, back during the summer, this is something she's always wanted to do. And I can't knock for someone for wanting to, get to live their dream. And I posted this on Instagram last night. Julia's now in the house. We 1 down, 2 more to go, because we have Stephanie and Delta waiting in the wings. When those 2 debut, the NXT women's division is probably going to be one to watch for sure, because not just those 3, but with everybody else we have in that women's division currently too, with the addition of these 3, I need everyone to watch out, and it's going to be fantastic.
Agreed.
So we move on from this amazing moment, and then we get into our main event of No Mercy this evening for the NXT Championship match. We have All Ego Ethan Page taking on TNA megastar Joe Hendry, with Trick Williams as the special guest referee. Yes. So the build to this has been really, really fun.
Exceptional.
It is fantastic. So we do get a recap of everything leading into this moment. We had Ethan Page winning the NXT Championship back at Heatwave in July by pinning Mr. Javon Evans in that fatal 4-way, where Trick, even though lost his title, did not get pinned, which was fantastic. And so Ethan has been doing anything and everything to hold on to this. He wouldn't let Ora Mensa fight for the title. That match happened at Great American Bash, and Ethan retained. Ethan is what I love in my heel champions. He's basically the chicken shit heel where he does anything and everything to not have to defend his title, but only defends the title on his terms, but otherwise he doesn't want to. So he beat Dante Chen for it in easy fashion. Oro Mensah was unsuccessful at Great American Bash. We had a triple threat to determine Ethan's opponent for No Mercy. Joe Hendry won with a little assist from Trick. This sets this up. Trick also finds himself as guest referee because Ethan again tries to do anything and everything to not have to defend his NXT championship against a TNA star. Again, if anybody has not been familiar with Joe Hendry's concerts, those are the best things in professional wrestling right now. In my opinion, fantastic. Joe Hendry clean clocks Ethan Page on the go home with his finisher, the standing ovation. And here we are. I love all three of these individuals. I love all ego Ethan Page. I think he is fantastic. Though, Ethan, we got to talk about that finisher because it was... it looked rough.
We've had 3. I gotta say,
let's just talk about it now, and then I'll get back to it. But damn,
in 24 hours, we had 3 of the hardest razor's edges, ego's edges that we've seen. Because the ones that were hit on Dom and Liv were pretty bad too. This is just not a great move for professional wrestling. Like, I know the wrestlers are cool and I love it. I'm a big Scott Hall fan. My dad was a mirror image of Scott Hall. Like everything, face, chest hair, all of it. Like, I'm a big Scott Hall fan because my dad looked like him and stuff, or he looked like my dad. But I got to be honest with you. I've never thought this move should be utilized in wrestling. Like, it is brutal. I've taken this move in a ring before. It sucks. Like, your whole body, like when you take the back bump, your whole body kind of like moves up over your head. And all of a sudden you're like, it feels like you swallow, like, everything you do, it's like you swallow your tongue. It's a rough move to take. And the way Joe Hendry took it yesterday was brutal.
It was.
Oh my God. It was awful.
Yeah, the landing was very rough to watch because that man like lawn chaired himself and I got worried. I'm like, no! Yeah. I was like, we can't have somebody get hurt. Not Joe Hendry. That was definitely a rough ego's edge for sure. Now, the match itself, I thought it was fun, albeit it was a little bit on the shorter side, but I still thought Joe Hendry and Ethan Page did fantastic. I knew Ethan Page was going to win. I said so in my predictions, but damn it, Joe Hendry made me believe in him so much that he could actually take it. And honestly,
I actually predicted Joe to win, and I was, I got to say, after Ethan Page, but I'll let you finish, but I do have some things to say about Ethan.
So I'll finish off by saying this, and we'll talk about Ethan, but man, the crowd was invested in this match. To see everyone be behind Joe Hendry. And again, as someone who consistently watches TNA, to see him go from viral sensation to like being the poster boy for, what this relationship between NXT and TNA can be. And of course, WWE is not stupid. They probably have their eye on Joe Hendry. As should he choose to leave TNA, they have him come over to WWE, which would be fantastic. And they did the same thing with Jordan. If they choose to leave TNA, the NXT WWE doorway is still open. But man, I said Ethan, I picked him to win. I didn't feel that they were going to take the title off him, but I just kind of wanted Hendry to win to see the internet explode. And what we can consensusly agree and not anybody disagree that Joe Hendry is great for professional wrestling.
Yes.
But Macho, you wanted to talk about Mr. All Ego Ethan Page. So let's talk about him. What you got?
So I've mentioned plenty of times, and I've mentioned this on other shows that I've done with you before, that I grew up in Jersey, Bayonne, New Jersey, where I was able to grow up during the heyday of independent wrestling. And there was this independent wrestler that Ethan Page reminds me of, and his name is Billy Reel. Now, Billy Reel passed away a couple months ago. He was exceptional. The funny thing is, Billy Reel's thing, that Ethan does this, Billy did this. It was that what he did. And every time I watch him, he reminds me of him. One of Billy's Like, one of his things that he did was after he beat you, he smiled at you. It was almost like, I'm not going to sell that you even hurt me. I'm going to sell that I beat you. And I was always going to win. And the way Ethan just pins Joe Hendry and then just like almost like this awful little kid just would not leave Trick, would not get out of his way, just kept smiling. Like, notice me. I just beat you. It's like the first time your son beats you at Mario Kart or something, and he just keeps rubbing it in your face. You know what I mean? Like, I'm taking a shower and it's knocking on the shower door or something. It's like, what's up? I'm in the shower. And he's like, I just beat you at Mario Kart. Like, that's what it is.
Ethan's facial expressions and mannerisms for his character are so good. I love it so much.
I genuinely love the fact that he's in this company. I think he's the perfect world champion. I also think he's really good in the ring, but he doesn't do a lot. Like, there are pro wrestlers that feel like they have to show you everything. Like, you need to know how good I am, and I need you to see it every single week. Ethan doesn't do that. He can do everything that you want him to do. He can do all the technical stuff. He can do all of the classic wrestling stuff, but he doesn't need to because he's a heel. So I just need to win this match. That's all I need to do. I just need to win this match. Every match is different. One match, I may need to get on the ground and I might have to grapple with you. One match, like this match, it just might have to be a brawler feel. A classic, like, Gorgeous George versus Ric Flair style match. Or Harley Race versus, like, Antonino Rocco or something weird. But then you watch, like, this and you watch Ethan Page and you're like, he hasn't had a single match that has been mirror image of the previous match. Every single match has been different. Every single match is, like you said, it's the chicken shit heel trying to get out as world champion. And every time he wins, oh, well, I knew I was going to win all along. Like, it is
right.
Awesome.
It is. And what added this to my enjoyment of it is the fact that you could tell Trick wants to hit him so hard at the end. But you know what? He said he was going to call it down the line, and he did that despite, getting thrown out the ring and all that good stuff with the second ref. And then we get to the end where, Ethan is celebrating. Pete Dunne attacks Trick. That's, we're getting that match on Tuesday. And it seems that Pete Dunne is going to be coming after Ethan Page once he gets through with Trick. So Ethan and Pete Dunne, I'm like, sign me up. I'm here for it. Like, that match I think is going to be fun.
Sure.
At least you're right. And honestly, I think Endgame definitely is Ethan and Trick will definitely get a rematch down the line, probably by the end of the year. Or if they wanted to, they can extend this further into what however long they want this. But I thought this was a fun main event. It was a little bit on the shorter side, but my goodness, Joe Hendry continues to be one of my favorite things in professional wrestling. And I am super excited because even on social media, we get the little video. He's like, I didn't win tonight, but Sean, any show, anywhere, anytime. So who knows? I don't think this is the last we will see a Joe Hendry in NXT. So we shall see what happens with that. But Macho, that brings us to the end of our No Mercy review. So this was definitely a solid show. I said at the top of this, I still think Heatwave is my favorite NXT pay-per-view this year, but this was definitely a fun and solid show. So now what we're going to do is we are going to get into our ratings for this. The one thing that we have kept here on the BC WrestlePod is our empanada ratings system. So that has become our staple, which I love. So Macho, I'm going to let you go first from beginning to end for No Mercy 2024 at a scale of 1 to 10. How many empanadas do you give No Mercy and why?
I'm going to give it a 9.25 empanadas. I really, really felt like from beginning to end, this show had way more good than bad. I wouldn't even call it bad. I just think maybe the Wendy Chu and Kalani Jordan match wasn't positioned well. And I think maybe some extra time with the two of them, maybe 13 minutes might have been a little bit too long, but I know most of the matches were 13 minutes long. I just really felt like Axiom and Nathan Frazier versus Chase University was really good. The turn was like, ooh, like let's get that going. Zachary Wentz and Wes Lee the match of the weekend. I think it warrants a couple of empanadas itself. Oba Femi versus Tony D'Angelo. Like I said, it really showcased Oba in a great way. Roxanne and Jada was really good. The only negative I have, that which I guess that I would say my two negatives are from the women's matches. One is like the Wendy Chu match, just them not meshing. And then my other negative from the women's match is just I feel like Julia debuting overshadowed the work that Jada did. That is my only negative for this entire show. I loved it. I loved it in its entirety, and I'm excited for the next show. I'm excited for the next NXT show, and I think that's what we did. And I'm not talking the next pay-per-view. I'm excited for Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm excited
for Tuesday.
Oh yeah, it's like, well, I gotta watch Tuesday now to figure it out.
Yes,
I agree with you. I thought this was a really strong show. I'm going to give this a solid 8.5 out of 10 for me. Again, my bias is coming from Heatwave when we were in Toronto in July. Definitely that card to me was fantastic, but this is still a really good show. And my docked points are kind of the same reasons as you. Wendy and Kalani not necessarily meshing very well. But again, that match was terrible. It was just okay. Yeah. And then I agree with you with Julia's debut kind of overshadowing the work of Jada Parker and Roxanne's match. But ultimately, though, I still thought this was a fun show. And NXT, so outside of TNA, for me, NXT continues to be consistent when it comes to their pay-per-views. Like, they have been really, really fantastic, very solid. Kudos to all the talent. And Shawn Michaels, you keep doing the damn thing because you're doing an awesome job. Yes. You and Ava are killing it right now in NXT. So I'm excited for Tuesday. And of course, again, Macho is going to be at Halloween Havoc. So I'm excited to hopefully we could get him back for the review of that one, because I would love for you to come back, my friend. NXT is such a fun time. It's fun to be a wrestling fan right now, and NXT is bringing it for sure. Mm-hmm. So before we give our, before I give the final shout outs and, get us on the way, Macho, do you have any final thoughts, words, parting messages you would like to say, plug, whatever you want to do?
The only thing I want to do is I just want to get up on a little pedestal for a second. I just want people to listen to me. We've had 2 straight weeks of really good pro wrestling. Let's just enjoy it. If you enjoy one company more than the other, there's no need for you to go on the internet and for you to say, this company did a better job than this company. This match was better than this match. Like, just enjoy professional wrestling. One needs the other. This company here, it's an umbrella and it has a bunch of little companies under it. And the other company, well, it's one singular company. That needs to be as good as they could possibly be. This needs to be what it is now, which is showcasing and building. NXT is it's like OVW back in the day. It's trying to get these people ready for the next step. You can't compare them to a company that is having a 20-year veteran close a Wembley show. You can't do things like that. It's not fair to the talent that we're watching. This talent isn't on that level yet, but their shows have been exceptional. Just please try to enjoy wrestling. Let's put an end to the tribalism, because it's gone too far.
I can get 100% behind that, and that has always been you've known me for a while now. That has been my message, and that is why I started BC WrestlePod, to showcase that even in the disagreements, we are fans of professional wrestling first, and we're going to talk about the highs and the lows, but we're also going to be respectful of our opinions of one another. So, Macho, it was so lovely to have you here again. I have missed working with you, and we'll figure something else out to get you back on here as fast as we can. But until then, that is going to be it for us here at the next level, as I'm still workshopping the NXT PLE review team name. But that is going to be it for Next Up Reviews. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back with the next NXT PLE review at the end of October for Halloween Havoc. From myself and friend to the show, Macho, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, but more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. So I'll be back later this evening with my WWE boys to review Bash in Berlin. But until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll see you next time.